Hello and welcome in, Cosmic Travelers. If you haven't checked out my other episodes for Whispers of the Ancestors and you happen to enjoy this one, I'd like to encourage you to give the previous two a listen. I've generally been starting them with a little story, incorporating my own or even other accounts I've witnessed multiple times through my energy work or through just the collective. Each of these episodes are planned and written and worked on sometimes many months in advance. And when I started working on this episode, it was the middle of January, and I had already planned for the connection and ritual to be about rebirth, as March is the time frame for that energy. I had just finished uploading the previous episode when I told my husband, I wonder how this next episode's gonna go. I'm going to have a lot of meditating to do on it, and maybe even asking others what they think about rebirth. This kind of communication with the collective typically helps me get my connections going so that I'm not only speaking on my behalf. However, God Source Consciousness guided me to stay on my own path with this one. As I've learned through self-discovery, this is where you get to learn and trust your own Sekhem and how to communicate with it authentically. Not only that, but it also provides multiple avenues for energy flow and healing. There were so many synchronicities to show me that this is exactly what I needed. So what did rebirth mean to me? I knew rebirth one way, as I had lost almost all parts of myself that I had been trying to cling on to for the past few years, and I was personally working on my own rebirth. But now I was about to become aware of it in a whole other way. Now I'm going to pause for a moment here because I think it's really important to know that as we go further into this episode, in order to understand rebirth, we have to talk about death. If this is something that you're struggling with in any way, maybe you can come back to this episode another time. Please do what you feel is most comfortable for you. And I also have to apologize. My voice might be sounding a little bit stuffy. I just had the worst influenza. I've been waiting for the past 3 weeks to try and record this. Coming back home and having this influenza has really been a setback. I got a call that my last living grandparent wasn't doing so good, and after a big fall, his health had rapidly declined. A few days later, I was told I should make it out as soon as possible to make sure that I say my goodbyes. And on the second day in February, I flew out of state to be with my grandfather and family. My grandfather was my closest grandparent. I've always felt deeply connected to him, and even as I've been sitting here working through grief, looking at all the memories, I realize how much he has influenced my life. Grandpa taught me how to ride horses since I was little. We'd go riding through the fields, into the creeks, to mountains, and just be ever so present with nature. I knew then that Grandpa didn't resonate with the idea of organized religion, but it wasn't until I was older that I understood Grandpa found God Source Consciousness through the wind, the trees, on top of the mountain. He loved to garden, and he was very connected to the earth since he was a young kid. Farming was his family's lifestyle. Before arriving, I had tried to make several telepathic connections with my grandfather, and the first time I met with him, we were in a place that wasn't the regular frequency I feel when I connect to heaven, God, Source, Consciousness, angels. This place was quite literally heaven. It was a peace that was more profound and had a deeply intensive feeling of peace. Not that I haven't ever felt that with angels, it's just this felt so different. I sobbed uncontrollably upon feeling it, and then seeing my grandfather. I asked him to wait for me, and I had a sense that he wasn't fully there yet, and that I would still have some time. Upon arriving, I went straight to see my grandfather in hospice. His eyes lit up and he reached out and grabbed my hand. I said to him, "I told you I was coming, Grandpa. I'm here. I made it." And I showered him with kisses and love. I held his hand for a few hours and then did my first energy check on him. I wasn't sure how this would end up working. I wasn't sure if my family would want me to practice my energy work, but I couldn't help but check in because I noticed he had become very uncomfortable And so very subtly, I checked his chakras and noticed the energy moving in the first 3 at a rapid pace, indicating his presence still tethered to this world. The first 3 chakras are the areas that are tied to this physical world, the root chakra being survival, the sacral. This is the home for movement and emotional balance, as well as a few other things. And the solar plexus, which governs our ego, how you feel about yourself. And I personally connect to this chakra as our battery packs as well. This is another chakra that is a huge part, that is the bridge to our physical world. The way that these energy centers were moving felt very chaotic and almost like they were blocked from moving up. Energy was pent up down in those 3. I felt blocks before, but this was also something that felt very different energetically. Day 2, I felt a shift in my grandfather's energy. I could feel he was scared or afraid and needed us there with him. Now, my grandfather had become completely nonverbal before I had arrived, so he wasn't able to communicate this, but my mom and I felt he needed some support around him. Like many of us, my grandfather had spent a lifetime resisting unconditional love and choosing to close himself off to receiving it. But in those final moments with him, we shared all the things he had feared and how he actually accomplished all those fears. Then I led him through this guided meditation to help him find my grandmother, his parents and siblings, and the unconditional love that has always been waiting there for him. That room felt so vibrant. It was radiating this feeling of safety and compassion, and I believe that that energy had moved into his heart, expanding into something greater. And then I felt him lifting, his spirit transitioning and rising towards unconditional peace. When I went into feeling his energetic body, I now felt hardly any movement in the first 3 chakras. I felt energy swelling at the heart and expanding up into the crown. This is high frequency, expansive, and luminous. The crown chakra radiates a pure, transcendent energy that connects you to the divine source or universal consciousness. It is often described as a glowing violet or white light that extends beyond the physical body, linking you to the cosmos. The crown chakra holds the energy of deep peace, enlightenment, and a sense of oneness. And when it is balanced, it brings an effortless awareness of higher truth and purpose beyond our ego, beyond our physical body, beyond everything in those first 3 chakras. After several hours, my mom and I went home to eat and came right back, and there was still a deep feeling of peace in that space. We had this knowing together that Grandpa would either pass that night or the very next morning. But we had also both deeply felt that my grandpa wanted us to be there with him for his last breath. An hour before we made it in the following day, that morning, my handsome grandpa had surrendered to God, Source Consciousness, and his transition became a rebirth. Even hours after passing, his chest remained warm. It was as if the energy of love had fully integrated into him. His heart, once closed in life, had finally opened in death. And that was when I truly understood another completely different perspective of how rebirth is not an end, but a new beginning. And not only for my grandfather, but also for the ripple of everyone that he is connected to. Everyone's life has to change in some sort of way, and we begin a new rebirth into something new. Ancient cultures never saw death as an end. It was a portal, a transformation, a return. Life moves in cycles: birth, death, and rebirth. This wasn't just about the body, but about the shifts in our own lives, the shedding of old identities, the release of what no longer serves, and the endings that make way for new beginnings. As we step into spring, we also step into one of the most powerful cosmic portals of renewal, the Spring Equinox. On this day, light and darkness exist in perfect balance. The earth reaches a moment of equilibrium before tapping into longer, brighter days. In ancient traditions, this was a time of renewal, fertility, and awakening, when the land came back to life and people stepped into their personal power, planting seeds, literally and spiritually, for the future. Across cultures, the spring equinox was honored as a time of balance, rebirth, and stepping into one's power. In ancient Egypt, the equinox aligned with the resurrection of Osiris, symbolizing renewal and eternal cycle of life. Temples were constructed to align with the rising sun, marking the return of light and the renewal of spiritual consciousness. In Celtic traditions, Ostara was celebrated as a festival of fertility and renewal. Eggs, hairs, and flowers represented rebirth, while fire rituals symbolized the awakening of inner and outer power. People would plant crops, perform rites of balance and renewal, and honor the goddess Yostur, whose energy brings new life to the earth. For the Maya and other indigenous peoples, the equinox was a time of deep ritual. At Chichen Itza, the temple of Kukulkan was designed so that on this day the sun creates the shadow of a serpent slithering down the pyramid, a powerful symbol of transformation, shedding the old and stepping into a new cycle. In Hindu traditions, the festival of Holi marks this time. It's a celebration of color, joy, and the burning away of the old to make way for the new. The Christ consciousness as the archetype. Beyond the individual figure of Jesus, the Christ consciousness represents a universal archetype of enlightenment, compassion, and divine connection. The spring equinox, with its emphasis on renewal and spiritual rebirth, aligns with the idea that humanity collectively can experience the awakening of Christ consciousness within themselves, entering a new cycle of spiritual growth, compassion, and unity. The exact date of Jesus' birth is not definitively known, but some traditions and theories suggest that Jesus may have actually been born around the time of the spring equinox. However, the commonly accepted date for the celebration of his birth, Christmas, December 25th. This date was likely chosen by earlier Christians to coincide with the Roman festival of Sol Invictus, a celebration of the winter solstice and the unconquered sun, symbolizing the return of longer days. However, the spiritual symbolism of Jesus' rebirth and his association with the spring equinox, or the themes of rebirth and balance and the second coming, can be deeply profound, extending beyond Christian and Catholic traditions to encompass universal archetypes of light, transformation, and cosmic balance. All of these traditions remind us that rebirth is not just about returning to life, it's about stepping into a newer form of power. Death is not the end, but a movement of energy, a return or rebirth to something greater. A rebirth is not just about a physical death, it happens within us all the time. When an old belief dies and a new one takes its place, that's rebirth. When we walk away from patterns that no longer serve us, that's rebirth. When we let go of an identity, a version of ourselves that was built on fear or anything else, and step into something greater, that's rebirth. And even when we lose someone close to us and things change in our lives, that is a rebirth. And this is exactly what the spring equinox represents. The earth has been in a long sleep, a winter of darkness, but now the light returns. Life awakens, and we too are called to shed the old and step into the new. So I ask you, what is ready to be reborn within you? This ritual honors rebirth in all of its forms, whether you're grieving a loved one, stepping into a new phase of life, or releasing something old to make space for your next chapter. Here's a list of things that you'll need. A candle, white, gold. If you can't find gold, yellow and green. White representing purity, cleansing, and peace. Gold or yellow representing the return of light, and green representing new beginnings and growth. A bowl of water representing the flow of life and emotional renewal. Seeds or even a plant symbolizing growth, intention, and rebirth. A journal and pen to write down what you are releasing to help you step into what it is you are manifesting. Step 1, create a sacred space. Find a quiet place, light your candle, and say, I call upon my ancestors known and unknown from every timeline and lineage. I honor the cycles of life, the endings and the beginnings. I welcome the energy of renewal and balance into my life. Step 2, release and planting intentions. Dip your fingers into the bowl of water and gently touch your forehead, heart, and bring your hands together. Say to yourself, with this water, I cleanse the past. I release all that no longer serves me. I surrender to the flow of renewal and rebirth. Hold the seeds or small plant and speak your intention. As I plant these seeds, I plant my intentions for growth, balance, and abundance. Just as the earth awakens, I awaken into my highest self. Bury the seeds in the soil and place the plant down. Step 3, closing affirmation. Hold your hands over your heart and speak these words. I embrace the cycles of life. I trust the flow of energy from earth to sky, from past to future. With every breath, I am reborn. Step 4, reflect and journal. Take time to write in your journal of what it is that you released and what it is that you are asking to step into. Step 5, closing affirmation. Blow out the candles and say, the light and dark are in harmony as I am. I carry the wisdom of my ancestors and the power of nature within me. I step forward into this new season with clarity, strength, and equilibrium. Rebirth is an ancient truth. The earth shows us, our ancestors knew it, and we too must honor it within ourselves. As we step into this spring equinox, I ask you, what are you ready to awaken within yourself? Until next time, Cosmic Traveler, take care and stay in that equilibrium.